And then, as I was saying with that notary service, you can just go, students have access to all the notaries in the campus community for any other types of documents they need notarized. I see another question. If a student's ballot was mailed to an old address, can their ballot be cured? What's the best bet for them to vote in Missouri? So all states do allow you to request a replacement ballot. So if it was mailed to an old address where, like, some ballots are mailed to their parents' address, and so their parents can just send that along. But if the ballot was mailed to an old address where the parents no longer live either, all states will do allow you to request a replacement ballot. So we just tell students to contact their local election authority to figure that out. Can you advance the slide, Shruti? So then, as far as taking all those resources, et cetera, and putting them into action steps, these are some of the action steps we're recommending students take right now. So first is making a voter plan. We have a video online that goes through making a voter plan, and I'll put a bunch of links into the chat after I'm done speaking, including the link to this video. Researching the issues and the candidates on your ballot. So before students go vote on November 3rd, if they're voting in person, making sure that they've researched their ballot. There are a lot of judges on the Missouri ballot who a lot of students, like myself too, have never heard of. And so doing research on that ahead of time so that the voting process itself can go quickly and you can make an informed vote at the polling place. And then reminding your friends and family members to vote. So relational organizing is really important right now as far as having students ask their friends on their freshman floor to go vote with them, or their friends in a student group, et cetera, so that voting can be really a community event and that a lot of students can partake in voting with their friends. We'll get a lot more students to turn out to vote, and will also just be a more positive experience for everyone. That's the end of the voting section of today's presentation. But if you have any questions, I will have time to answer those at the end, or you can put them in the chat and I can be answering them there.
Thank you, Lindsay. And Lindsay, what she doesn't share, she graduated in 3 years because she was really pumped about being involved in this election, and somehow miraculously got a WashU degree in 3 years and has been outstanding in this voter engagement fellow role. We couldn't have done half the stuff that we're doing without her. So you're almost there, Lindsay. Thank you for everything that you're doing. We want to spend a little bit of time just talking about St. Louis. And the med school created a video that we wanted to share with y'all because we think it does a good job of giving an overview of St. Louis as a region. And St. Louis is a nuanced city like many cities across the country. We have opportunities for growth and challenges, and we have hidden gems and beautiful restaurants and parks and everything else. For example, just recently, St. Louis was rated one of the top cities for female entrepreneurs. And often due to our cost of living in St. Louis, entrepreneurship is really growing in really significant ways in our city. And that's something that we're proud of. But this video provides an overview of various neighborhoods, as well as individual stories about why people choose and chose to live in St. Louis. And after the video, we'll have a discussion on the video. So the sound and everything should be set to share. If it doesn't work, please feel free to let us know, holler at us, or put it in the chat.
My name is Ndwale Jolly. I serve as the Executive Director for Pathology and Immunology at Washington University School of Medicine. I started off my career with WashU as an undergraduate student in 1998, and I stayed on to do my doctoral work in physical therapy. And subsequently I left, but then came back to do a fellowship in healthcare finance. Moving to St. Louis for some was like, well, why there? It's in the middle of nowhere. You don't have a beach. If you're comfortable sitting in an hour worth of traffic to go 5 miles, that's your business. But I like the fact that I can bike, walk, get to places fairly easily, and raise a family in a very supportive community. As people say, it's just easy to live here.
My name is Caitlin Rady-Rozier. I'm a social worker. I work for the Integrated Health Network in St. Louis. My job with the Integrated Health Network is to work with the med schools in St. Louis to help them with their curriculum. So one of the cool things about where we live is obviously living in the firehouse, which just in general, people are like, what? It was decommissioned 1963, 1964. But when it was in operation, It was one of the busiest fire stations in the country. Yeah, it's sort of a cool place to live.
My name's Isaac Butler. I am Vice President for the Center for Career Services and Education at the St. Louis College of Pharmacy, and also Chief Diversity Officer. We moved around this neighborhood quite a bit on the south side of Walnut Park because my mom was a single parent mother and struggled financially at times. But this street was the house that we stayed at the longest from the time I grew up until about 7th grade. Like me, a lot of my family members have moved away, but I still have a few that live in the neighborhood. You know, St. Louis has a lot of challenges, but when you're from St. Louis, you love St. Louis. A lot of us say we so St. Louis, and so I am so St. Louis.
My name is Dennis Chang. I'm an internal medicine physician at WashU. I'm what's called a hospitalist, which is I only see patients who are admitted to the hospital. I'm also the interprofessional thread director for the MD curriculum, as well as part of the new curriculum build for the Gateway new curriculum. We've lived here about 2 years now. We had visited here maybe a year before. One of the things that I've done is just drive around and just understand that those neighborhoods are all different and unique. The outside perception is that it's this sort of Midwest homogeneous city, but actually it's really not.
Hi, my name is Quinn Minsky, and I'm an occupational therapist specializing in community-based mental health and homelessness. And I am an instructor here in the program in occupational therapy at Washington University School of Medicine. So I was born and raised here, and I've never really lived anyplace else other than an undergrad. I actually have a St. Louis tattoo. It gets a bad rap, but it is absolutely a fabulous city despite having issues that every city has.
When looking for neighborhoods, I wanted to be close to Forest Park because my wife and I, when we were in undergrad, Forest Park was right there in front of Danforth. When looking for neighborhoods, I wanted to be close to Forest Park because my wife and I, when we were in undergrad, Forest Park was right there in front of the Danforth campus. Having access to the History Museum, the Art Museum, everything that the park has, we wanted to be close to that. So we kind of looked around that. We looked at Clayton, we looked at University City, we looked at DeBoliver, we looked at Central West End, and we looked at the Grove, and all for different reasons. And we ended up choosing this particular neighborhood because it had a vibrancy that is fairly unmatched, I think, with other communities, and one that was highly inclusive and very diverse. The spectrum lives here. Great racial diversity, great gender diversity. This is a very LGBTQ friendly neighborhood, as well as intergenerational diversity. So it's one where I can be myself and not feel different. One of the things I always knew about that happened in the city was the naked bike ride. I saw it in the news, but I didn't really know exactly where. I know it was in the city until we moved to the Grove 2 years ago, and then we're on the porch and my son goes, "Hey, look, there's lots of naked people on bikes." And I'm like, "What?" But it was awesome. It was, it was a good time, and we just kind of explained to the kids what were happening. But I would say that was a classic welcome to the neighborhood. I think that sort of describes what the Grove is. You can be you in all your elements. You can argue if that's too much, but it's one thing that gives me comfort.
We sort of straddle the Central West End and the Grand Center Arts District. It's been really wonderful, and it has its challenges at the same time. I think we underestimate exactly how much sidewalks matter. I don't feel comfortable taking my stroller into the street, and I don't want to go into somebody's lawn, so I have a workaround where we end up actually going up to Grand Center instead of sort of staying in our own neighborhood. It certainly communicates something about how much we care about the people that live in these neighborhoods. The public schooling system in St. Louis in general is shoddy at best, and we have a school right across the street that I would love to be able to send my kids to. There's literally a crosswalk from our house to the school, and we would really love for our boys to be able to go there. With St. Louis public schools, there's lots and lots of issues, and one of the big ones I think is turnover within the administration and how that kind of lead to some toxic school environments. So this is the corner of Delmar and Vandevenner. This is where sort of the Delmar divide begins. If we want to get pizza delivered, for example, our pizza place that will deliver to us is on Kings Highway, which is about 3 miles away. And there's a Domino's on Lindell that is less than a mile away that will not deliver to us because of where we're located. When they see our address and they like figure it out, like, oh, actually we don't go north of Delmar. And they'll like say that very explicitly. Where money and things are, like those kinds of conveniences are the things that build up neighborhoods. And if you can't even get a business to deliver to your house, like how difficult it will ever be to sort of lift the neighborhoods up if we can't entice people to come in to bring services into the area.
My mom was a single parent. I have a younger sister. My father went to jail when I was 8, and we lived without a lot of resources growing up. But my mom knew the importance of education, so despite our resources or a lack of resources, she really pushed education. While she was pushing education, we had a dilemma. This school being in St. Louis Public, at the time it wasn't a very high-performing school, and my mom had to make a decision on whether or not to send me to school literally across the street and around the corner, and it would have taken me probably 5 minutes to walk to school, or enroll me in the desegregation program where I had to take an 1.5-hour bus ride out to the Lindbergh School District. And so she decided to enroll me in the desegregation program. And so I went to actually 5 different elementary schools. And I went to 5 different elementary schools because, as I mentioned before, my mom was really focused on education, and she knew that the high-performing schools were in the suburbs in predominantly white neighborhoods. And at the same time, many members of my family were quite honestly fearful for my safety going out as a little black child in all white environments. Walnut Park is in the Promise Zone. It's called the Promise Zone because it has high amounts of unemployment, violence, crime, and really people that are disadvantaged. And it's called the Promise Zone because even though those people are disadvantaged in a lot of ways, there's a lot of promise in this community, and hopefully I'm an example of that. At that time, she wanted to move out of the city for safety, and we moved to Berkeley. Berkeley wasn't too much safer than the city, although a little bit at that time back in the 90s. So that's where I went to high school. I went to Berkeley High School, another predominantly African-American school. Didn't have the resources that could effectively prepare me for college. However, I did great at Berkeley and went to undergraduate at the University of Missouri-Columbia. And I specifically chose Mizzou because I wanted to go to a predominantly white institution, thinking back to that time in my desegregation experience. And one of the key lessons that experience taught me is I have to learn the game. And so I needed to understand and learn dominant culture, and specifically dominant white culture. And I knew, even at a young age, if I'm going to be successful, I'm going to have to learn this culture very intimately. It's been a long journey when I think back to sitting in this parking lot, and I do remember playing in this parking lot. At that time, I was a kid with low resources, and now as an individual who's privileged to have higher resources, it gives me kind of goosebumps sitting here at this moment right now.
So we live in Olivet, Missouri. It's in Ladue County. We were in New York, New Jersey for more than a decade. My wife's an oncologist as well, and our life was getting a little too busy. We have 3 sons, and so we really wanted to spend more time at home. I used to actually commute 2 hours every day. What's interesting is, we have the privilege as physicians to be able to choose where we live. We chose here for the school district. We know our son needs services, and this district provides those services. The biggest concern we had was whether we'd be accepted here. When you're not white and you're Asian, you worry that there will be racial issues that you have to deal with. I grew up in Los Angeles. My wife grew up in New Jersey. We lived in New York. There was sort of natural diversity that was there as well as for the kids, and that continues to be a worry now. Issues that I worried about, I haven't seen here a lot. Certainly not at work or at WashU at all. I think what I've also found here is that there's so many people here who are working to make it better.
This is West County, St. Louis. This is sort of peak suburbia. This is where I grew up. This is sort of where my roots are. I actually don't live here anymore. but I spent so much time here that I feel like this is a place that really shaped a lot of who I am, but it also was a place that I had to spend a lot of time breaking down. When I went to O2 school and sort of started practicing and spent a lot of time in different areas of St. Louis, I really had to go back and understand my upbringing here in West County to be able to move forward and understand who I am as an OT. This is the house I grew up in. This is my parents' house. They still live here today. We come here on occasion to see my parents and visit the suburbs. We're about a quarter mile up the road from my parents' house. I think it's really interesting and sort of a commentary on this neighborhood is that I walked here from kindergarten. So at the age of 5, my family felt comfortable enough to let me in. Of course, there were a couple other kids, but we walked together up here every day and back, sort of unsupervised. And I think that's sort of an interesting comment on the safety of the neighborhood and the neighborhood itself, that it was totally okay for, you know, a 5-year-old to walk to school and back about a quarter of a mile. So people who live here, and a lot of the high schoolers will tell you it is the public-private schools. So a lot of the kids could choose to go private. The parents have the money, but they don't need to because the public schools are good enough. So in St. Louis, the famous question is, what high school did you go to? This is actually a way to tell 2 things. One, St. Louis is a big, small town. Believe it or not, everybody knows everybody. Even though it's a city, it's somehow amazing. Everyone knows everyone. So somebody will ask you, oh, what high school did you go to? I'd say Parkway West, and they would say, oh my gosh, do you know so-and-so? Chances are high that if I didn't know so-and-so, I probably knew so-and-so's sibling because they were in my grade level. So that's the first reason they ask the question. The second reason is socioeconomic status. That is what they are determining. You know, people are going to infer something if you say something in South County, something in North County, something in the city, something in Illinois. They're sort of taking what that high school is and then inferring the bias that we have from St. Louis.
Would I consider St. Louis home? Yeah, I do. I think it's all about community. I think I've found a community here in terms of where I live. I found a community at work. Overall, it's a decision that had to be made. I don't see how we could have gone on the way we were.
It was really important to us to stay in the city. Like, Ben is big about history and character, and the city obviously has that in spades.
You don't have to have $1 million, you know, to go to the zoo or take your kids to the museum. That's what makes St. Louis unique, is its affordability and access to folks along the economic spectrum.
Try to put your bias away and go to all those different areas and check them out. And I think a chance to really explore that can give you a really great picture of what St. Louis is and help you understand maybe some of the dynamics and disparities that exist here.
Don't allow what you see on the TV and the media to define populations of people. It's critical that you engage people at the individual level, learn their personal stories. We all, as healthcare providers, have a level of power that we can lend and use in order to improve the health of the people that we serve.
Getting feedback somewhere. So give me just a second. All right. So we have some processing questions, but just want to get initial thoughts, reactions, comments on people's thoughts around that video. Anything that surprised you? Anything that you already felt like you knew about St. Louis? And Lindsay, Ale, and I are happy to talk about kind of our perspectives and the different identities we hold and our thoughts on St. Louis as well. Yeah, Tracy.
First of all, I want to say I lived in St. Louis from 1988 to 1996, and I was a public school teacher in the Rockwood School District, which is near the young woman who was talking about Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that is wonderful about St. Louis is the diversity from neighborhood to neighborhood. What I found interesting for me is I didn't know about the neighborhood, the Grove. So how wonderful to sit here and watch this and see another wonderful neighborhood there. And I'm like, oh, I've got to take my son there the next time and show that mural. That's so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am curious. When I was there, they did have they talked in the video about the desegregation program.
Mm-hmm.
And we did have many students from the city come out to the Rockwood School District and I taught in Chesterfield. And I'm curious if they still have that program in place where students can opt to bus out to the schools. So I'm curious if either of you know about that.
Holly or Lindsay, you want me to take this? Okay, yeah, so from what I understand, the DSEG program, as we call it, is no longer what St. Louis has, the same, and I live in the city of St. Louis, but what the city of St. Louis has done is really done a couple of things. One, they've gone to a lot of charter schools have popped up in the St. Louis, particularly in St. Louis City in the last 5 to 7 years. Good or bad on how you feel about charter schools. I think they have some great strengths and some challenges. St. Louis City has also started to do a lot of magnet schools, and that has helped elevate the kind of academic caliber of the St. Louis City public schools. There is still some schools, some students that choose to go to a different school district, but it's not a system-wide program that happens. And the University of WashU is investing a lot in St. Louis City schools, particularly in the KIP program. I'm not sure if you're familiar with KIP schools. KIP schools are, their sole mission is to prepare students for post-high school readiness. So that can be community college, trade school, four-year institutions. And they really put an emphasis on college readiness. It's mostly for lower income, underserved communities. And a lot of our students tutor at KIP schools, and we have a lot of strong partnerships. And we've chartered a couple of KIP schools as well, because that's kind of what we've seen as our opportunity to invest back into the city. Does that answer your question, Tracy? Okay, cool. Are there other questions or thoughts on that video? All right, got a lot of mutes. Okay. Ale or Lindsay, do you want to talk about neighborhoods that you really value or appreciate in the city?
Yeah, I'll say that I was honestly someone who my first 1 year, especially at WashU, I was so enclosed at WashU. I did not really go out into the community at all. I didn't do much outside of WashU. But then my sophomore year was 2018, and I started canvassing a lot for the 2018 election and really getting to go out into St. Louis and stuff. And I think honestly, so as Shruti mentioned, I graduated in 3 years because I loved my 2018 experience so much that I wanted to do political campaign cycle stuff in 2020 as well. And I honestly think a large part of that was how much I loved just going into different St. Louis communities and different St. Louis neighborhoods and just talking to people from all over the city, all about politics, but then also just like their lived experiences in the different areas of the city and like how different politicians or different issues would represent their interests or not. So I think that experience I had that was taking me all around the city throughout the first couple months of my sophomore year was really eye-opening, in that like I had been pretty sheltered and been pretty confined to the WashU campus my freshman year. And some of that was like lack of access to transportation, but some of that was also just like I was comfortable at WashU. And I didn't like feel a need to challenge myself and challenge myself by leaving the campus because I was comfortable there. I was comfortable with the people I knew there, et cetera. But I think I definitely was missing out that year by staying on the campus and by not engaging in the city and in the different neighborhoods through a variety of different ways. And so that's been something that's been really valuable to me in the years since then.
And back to the Grove for just a minute, Tracy, there's a restaurant called Urban Research Brewery. It's a brewery, but it has the best pizza I've ever had. Yeah, probably in my like adult life. So you could check it out. Tracy, did you have another question? Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. So one thing that's changed from when I was in St. Louis and really has really increased, I would say, within the last 3 years is the ability to use Uber and other such services. And I know that they exist in St. Louis. What other ways can students use so for an example, when we were there recently, we took our son out to Queenie Park because they have wonderful trails out there for a runner who wants to get that, there's no easy way. He can't bike there. There's no easy way to do that. So Uber would probably be it. Then there's, if you go even further out, you've got the lake out there, Creve Coeur Lake Park, and all the trails and the boat rentals and things like that, that students on a weekend could go out and explore that. So I'm curious what the transportation options are to explore some of these unique neighborhoods. I mean, if you wanted to go get a nice Italian meal on the south side, how are they able to do that besides Uber, or is Uber it?
I can take this one. So in non-COVID years, there's a car share program where students can rent cars for $5 an hour to drive anywhere, or $60 a day. That's something that's pretty popular because you can get 4 of your friends to fill a 5-person car, and so it's only $1 an hour for each of you to go somewhere for the day. Was a really popular option. All students also have free metro passes and to use the metro to get, but that's like mostly in the city. So if you're talking like Creve Coeur Lake, like stuff out west, that's more the car share program was really helpful for me those times, but then also just learning to use the metro system and learning to use that as a way to navigate the city was really important for me and like really opened the areas I was able to access.
Lay, do you want to answer that?
Actually, in response to like your first question about exploring St. Louis neighborhoods and stuff, I was gonna say that similar to what Lindsay said, my freshman year, I was really comfortable in St. Louis, and not in St. Louis, in WashU bubble, they call it. And actually the times when I did get like a glimpse of stuff outside of like the WashU bubble was through my Uber rides, because the Uber drivers, they drive people everywhere, so they have a lot of good information on like stuff, like popular things. I heard there was an axe throwing situation somewhere. I have like a whole list on my phone of like Uber driver notes and things that I want to go explore, and I didn't really get the chance to do that just because I was so comfortable in my bubble, and then COVID hit and I'm a sophomore and I'm staying at home. So I'm looking forward to explore those things. But I will say car share was definitely a very popular option, especially if it's like maybe like later in the day and you don't like want to take public transportation, or you're just kind of too lazy to like walk, honestly. Uber and car share were the way to go.
Yeah, and right now due to COVID, the car share program is stalled until December because there's some concerns about how to manage spread when everyone's sharing a car. And all of our students do receive a Metro Pass. But again, with COVID, it's hard to like justify riding a bus or a train and all of that. So yeah, Tracy.
So I'm very positive. I do believe this health crisis will pass before my freshman graduates from WashU 4 years.
Too.
So I'm assuming that car share program will reinstitute itself. Yeah. Is that a WashU program? Is it a city program? And what are the restrictions? Like how old do you have to be? Do you have to show a driver's license? What are the details on how that program works?
It is a WashU program. I've never used it, so I'm gonna pass to the experts here.
It's through Enterprise. So if you have to be 18, I want to say, to do it. But you just send Enterprise, like you add an account and they have to verify your driver's license, and then they send you your own Enterprise car share card. And there's like a little reader thing on each of the windshields. And so you can like put your car on it and that'll unlock the car for you, and then the keys inside.
Yeah, I will verify that it is 18 because my friend was super excited that she was turning 18 and was like, I can get a car share now. And then COVID hit and she was like, I was really, really excited that I was going to be able to drive. But yeah, it is 18. And honestly, I never made an account myself because I always like what Lindsay mentioned, like you just get a group of friends together. So if one friend has that like account set up and you don't want to mess with all those technical things, then you just hop along with the friend and you're like, I got you, I'll pay you later. And so yeah.
Where are the cars stored? Like, are they on campus? Is there a special parking lot?
They're on campus. They're in various spots around campus, and there's some on the med school as well, med school campus as well. And I think you can just go online and reserve it for like 30 minutes, whatever. Okay. They can always take a scooter also.
Are there restrictions about how far that car can go away from campus? Like, could they get out to West County? Could they get to South Side to get an Italian meal? Are there restrictions?
Yeah, so my sophomore year, I was interning with an organization in Chicago that needed me to travel to different prisons in Illinois sometimes, and I was able to use that car share into Illinois overnight, etc. They start charging you like a little bit more per mile after like 200 miles or something, but you can take it wherever. I also have a friend who's from Tennessee, and she'd use it to drive home because it was cheaper than getting a plane ticket. So she'd just use it to drive home for the weekend too.
All right. Are there any other questions that we can answer? We're going to talk a little bit about the Gephardt Institute and what we offer. But if there are other questions that come up, feel free to interrupt us or put it in the chat. So a little bit about the Gephardt Institute. Our mission is really to foster a vibrant culture of civic engagement throughout WashU with the vision of civic health in St. Louis and around the world. Our primary kind of work is in the St. Louis region. And when we talk about the St. Louis region, we're not just talking about the St. Louis City or St. Louis County. We think about Jefferson City and rural Illinois and the places that we try to really expand our understanding, because the state of Missouri affects the city of St. Louis and the county of St. Louis, and we really try to work on that. We offer some cohort-based programs, and those of you who have students who are not yet juniors or are up and coming, even you, Ale, we offer three cohort-based programs. One is the Goldman Fellows Program. And that program is funded by the Joyce and Irving Goldman Family Foundation. It's an opportunity for undergrads to spend a summer in St. Louis with other WashU students doing work at a local nonprofit. So these have ranged from working at a law firm, working with immigration law, to working with underhoused, underhomed folks, to efforts around sustainability. They can be government agencies as well. And there's 10 fellows every year, and those fellows receive $5,000 summer stipend for community-based internships. So this helps offset the cost of housing, groceries, travel, anything else that could come up in the summer. And what they do as a part of that program is go into different neighborhoods in the St. Louis area and really take an immersive full day approach to that, where they'll talk to neighbors, they'll talk to government officials, they'll talk to local business owners to try to get a landscape understanding of neighborhoods, as opposed to just what they see on the media or what they hear through their friends and things like that. One of the other programs that we offer is the Civic Scholars Program. Civic Scholars Program is for juniors and seniors, and you apply in your sophomore year. And applications for both Goldman and Civic will be out in early spring, probably right as classes are starting. But the Civic Scholars Program provides the Civic Scholars Program provides a rigorous, in-depth curriculum for undergrad students who exemplify for future potential for civic leadership. So a lot of these folks go on to work in nonprofits, government agencies, law school, those kind of things, or international kind of doing international work as well. Sophomores are selected in a competitive merit-based process and learn together through their junior and senior years. So this is also tied to a class that they'll take for 2 years. Their junior year, they take a 2-hour course credit class, and there's 18 of them. Then their senior year, they'll take a 1-hour course credit class. The program includes, sorry, I'm managing the waiting room too. The program includes intensive coursework, leadership training, and mentorship to make sure that our scholars have a lifetime commitment to civic and community engagement. As a part of the Civic Scholars Programs, they're also awarded a $5,000 stipend where they use that to really develop a project or a program or an internship that's tied to their values around civic and community engagement. So these have ranged from working at Alzheimer's and working with a adult care facility to do yoga. Some folks have traveled to Ghana to work with developing health procedures there. Other folks have stayed in their own community and developed college access programs. So this $5,000 helps with travel, it helps with living expenses. It can also go to an organization where they see they really want to invest in and develop a program. And those programs take place in St. Louis, internationally and nationally. The last program that we really focus on, and this application will come out early spring as well, is our Arts and Civic Engagement program. Every year we take 3 students and place them in local arts nonprofits in the St. Louis Metro. Similarly, they are awarded a $5,000 stipend for living expenses and anything else they may need to use those funds for. We offer consulting services for how to get involved in community organizations. We also offer civic engagement grants and common ground grants. So a student has a great idea and they want to work with, say, Habitat for Humanity, but they need a little bit of startup money to really move forward with that project. They can come to us and say, hey, I've partnered with Habitat for Humanity. I need $500 for supplies or start a website or whatever it may be. And we offer those funding opportunities. We also offer funding, common ground grants for dialogues across difference. So let's say 2 groups of students want to get together and have a conversation, Republicans and Democrats, right? If anyone's going to change the world, I hope it's our students, but they may get together and talk across ideology and want $75 to order pizza. So we'll help pay for that. And then as Lindsay mentioned and does a great job of supporting voter engagement, alumni engagement, and then we support alumni engagement and other community organizations.
Yes, so with all of that wonderful information, we want you all to stay involved. And some ways you can do that is to sign up for the newsletter, our newsletter at gephartinstitute.wustl.edu. And there are a lot of different virtual programs that you can find on that website, and you can register for those there, much like the one you're attending right now. And there are also parent programs on that website. And you can take virtual tours at the Missouri History Museum and lots of great tours in there. And there is a document that will be uploaded in the chat for many more ways to stay connected with WashU and with the greater St. Louis community. And there's also an episode of We Live Here, which is a local St. Louis podcast. And yes, I believe that is the end of that. So we will open up for any questions and comments. And thank you all for being here with us today.
Are there any questions or comments about the Gephardt Institute, St. Louis, voter engagement, anything else that we missed? And I will upload that chat again, that file again. I know a couple of folks joined us late. And you all can also take advantage of some of the resources in here. The Missouri History Museum is doing some great virtual tours. You can watch the wildlife at the St. Louis Zoo, which is always a good stress reliever in these insane times. There's a lot more opportunities in that resource. And if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get more information about the Goldman Fellows, Civic Scholars Program, and Arts and Civic Engagement, about application deadlines and all of those things. Tracy's our #1 customer.
There we go.
I love it.
I'm a perennial student with lots of questions.
Yeah, I love it.
So the podcast that you have listed, what's the focus of it?
The focus of it is on the racial climate in St. Louis and just different identities and how all of that is impacted in St. Louis. It's done by 2 local folks from St. Louis, and I've really learned a lot from listening to it, and think if I had my way, every WashU student would listen to it coming into the university.
Is the link to that listed somewhere?
It's in that .pdf I just uploaded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Any other questions for the group? Well, we appreciate the time, and just a reminder to all of you to remember to vote and create a voting plan, and tell your friends and family and neighbors and whomever else to vote. And if we can do anything for you all in the future, please feel free to let us know. You can always email us at the Gephardt Institute at worcester.edu. And have a great weekend.